Okay, we're moving on here, and in this tutorial we're going to look at forming our eyes. And in kind of my previous tutorial when I was modeling the nose here, I got a little bit ahead of myself and moved these vertices in my side view to match kind of where my brow, that skull feature is. So let's just fix this. I'm just going to have to delete some detail. I'm going to just hit Control delete edge and vertice of that point, and into vertex mode I'm just going to move these vertices back to form the nose. And when I look here in my side view, this is really where my nose meets the face, so I'm just going to move these into a better position. And you can see the brow will start up here, and I need to add or model some geometry for that to work. These vertices here too can come down a bit. And I just need to do something with this, my topology, or that is how my edge flow is working. So I'm going to delete those edges, and I'm just going to do a multi-cut across the face here. This does bring everything back into quads, and I can see how that's working in my soft preview by hitting the 3 key. Things are still a little bit wonky here. This vertice, whoops, still in my multi-cut tool. So this brings up a good point. If you start using your multi-cut tool and you get to a point where you've made a mistake, just hit backspace, and that'll take you back to where you begin, or even before you begin to cut. And I'm just hitting my select tool to get out of that. So now this is looking better, but I need to have this shaped a bit better. And I think what, I just made this cut across here, Control delete to get out of that. I'm going to bring my picture framing up a bit higher on my forehead, because this will allow a nice edge flow for when I start modeling Mudbox. So I can see here how the creases in my face come up pretty high, and you can see how this kind of muscle forms around my forehead here. And I want to just enable, when I start to sculpt in Mudbox, to give Mudbox a chance to actually sculpt the way I want it to. So back into my multi-cut tool, and I'm just going to bring my cut up kind of this distance, hit enter, and then picture frame to get everything back from n-gons into quads. Select to get out of here. Now this isn't symmetrical. It's going to go into my vertex mode while I'm here. In my orthographic side view, I can shift select both those and use that scaling, the scaling trick in Y and Z to make them symmetrical. And while I'm here doing that, I'll do that to the rest of these. Okay, so we've shaped, or I've gone back and I've scaled these to be more symmetrical. So if I was to select now these shapes at the top where I made these cuts, would be a bit more symmetrical. And I've also moved some of these vertices around to kind of form a better call an edge loop, or face loop, sorry, a face loop around our face. And I can see that if I go into face mode and double click, we're coming around here. But what I want, I'll come back and make cuts so that really that face loop will look more like that. So let's start with our eyes back. We've moved some of the stuff. I need detail, like I said. I'm going to start with that brow. I moved this vertex down here, and if I go to my front view, my images aren't matching up quite as nicely as I'd like here. This is kind of coming over the center of my eye, and here this is, I have this coming over to the edge. So I need to maybe in my side view just bring that back up to there, and I'll see that that's working a bit better. And at the edge of my eye, if I selected it, it might be here and I can move it in, but I can see here it's really far back on the side of my head. I need to create some definition on the side here. So I'm just going to use my multi-cut tool, and I'm going to cut around, hold my shift key down to snap on that, and I'm just going to cut around the face here. And actually I'm going to not hold that shift key down because it gets rid of some of that nice edge flow, so backspace to freehand that edge flow that I need. In my front view, you can see I need to kind of cut where the side of my, not backspace, I need to cut kind of where that skull shape is. So backspace again. That's going to work better. And I'm just going to take it to the middle here. Now I can hold my shift key down to snap through and then down this side. Close that, hit enter to execute that cut. And then picture frame this off. Now I have some better geometry working here. I have more cuts for my brow detail and space for my eyes. So back to here. This will now be where the kind of side of my skull is going to come. So this is going to have to, just back to my side view, I can come back and once again scale these. And see where this was that cut or that edge before that I had pushed over here. It's in the center of my eye. Now this is going to be the edge of where my kind of eye socket of my skull bone edge begins. So I can just adjust these accordingly. Now I've got this detail. If I move this out, this isn't my nose, this is my skull, so it should work nicely. Okay, so I've moved a lot of geometry around just quickly, and it's just moving vertices, and I fast forwarded through that because there's no new tools that we've used, and we are just moving vertices, which we all should know how to do. And I'm just trying to match a bit better up to my nose, my own nose. And now we're ready to kind of start our eyes. If I hit 3, I should see it. I've got my brows started here, and I could, in soft mode, pull that out to get a better sense of how that's going to look. We're not going to do too much of that, because if I was to pull it out here and hit 1, you'll see how it's a dramatic kind of distance here. And looks a bit odd when we come into our... So let's form our eyes. I'm going to right click to go into face mode, and I'm just going to select the areas that will be our eyes and our eye sockets, and I'm just going to have a look in our front view to make sure that that matches pretty good. I think this vertex needs to come down better. No structure. Alright, so now I can go back and select these faces. It's looking better. You know, I can see here that in the corners here I could bring this up a bit more, and I think instead of it being like a dramatic up to the corner of my eye, we're not thinking the actual eye detail, we're thinking about the skull shape or underlying skull shape. Let's take that out just a bit more. Okay, so with them selected, I'm just going to hit the delete key, and I've got my eye started. Right click, go into my edge mode, double click these edges, and it should select both those edges inside. And here I'm going to use my extrude tool, so I'm going to extrude, click that extrude tool once, and I could take my thickness back a bit. It's going to do some funny stuff. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to use my move tool and just move it back a little bit in Z in my side view, and then R to scale, and I'm just going to scale that down just to approximate where my eye would be. Back into vertex, and I'm just going to now move these vertices to match what that eye is doing. I don't have to be exact just yet, just getting it to save myself a little bit of time by making it approximate. Back into edge mode again, Double click to get the edge loop, extrude tool, move tool, and move that extrude operation back. Again, I'm going to scale this down a bit more. And perhaps that move was a bit too aggressive. I can just bring that back. Just a little bit. And I'm going to use that extrude one more time. Move tool, and just move that back to kind of form what will be, scale that instead, it'll form to be the kind of cavity for the eyeball. I'm going to go into my mesh tools, insert edge loop, I'm going to insert a loop for my eye here, and I'm going to undo that because I didn't do both sides. I'll go into the tool. I'm going to use the multiple edges trick. That way I know that they'll be halfway on each side, or split those edges on each side. Reset the tool. Close it. Hit my select key to get out. Select tool key to get out of that tool. Double click to select both loops, and now I can just move that out to start forming the eye. Now it's a very primitive shape, but I do have kind of most of the detail I need to start forming. Now if I hit 3, it's starting to look like me. I don't have these kind of cheekbones here, but you know, we can move that out. And use the soft select mode. So B, hold my B key down again to just, whoops. Hold the B key to increase the size of that radius. And I'm just going to move that out. This is one way to do that, B to turn that off. In another video, I'll talk about using these sculpting tools, get the shape of my cheeks. But right now I have the eyes ready. You can see that I've got, looks like a little bit of a problem here, but I think all it is I can select it, I'll hit 1. I think it's the back of that eye socket that I made here. So if I just scale it down a bit, make sure it doesn't go through the head. Don't forget to save, Control-Alt-S. And next we'll look at forming the overall head and getting the details and shapes of our mouth, nose, and eyes closer to what our image plane looks like. We'll also look at kind of sculpting the head a bit better, and we'll start cleaning up these endgons and preparing for our ears. Thank you.